This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. I'm excited. I'm thrilled to break down all things happening in the world and the world of Detroit sports with my guy, Adam the Jock Strozinski, who in his work over the past 3 years on himself has learned that you don't walk up to another man and pimp slap him. He learned his lesson way back in the day. My guy, Adam the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? This weekend was the craziest shit I think I've ever seen in the history of television with what I saw at the Oscars. Did you see that shit? And what you gotta tell me, what did you make of that, seeing Will Smith pimp slap another man on live television? And word on Wednesday was they at least tried to get him out. But he was like, no, I ain't leaving. And they're like, okay, go out there and win an award and make a speech and party all night long. It was a crazy indication of how the world works, where in 1 minute you're pimp slapping someone for telling jokes, and the next you're crying on stage accepting an award. What a weird ass story this whole Will Smith, Chris Rock situation is. But boy, Chris Rock is about to get paid. His wallet is about to get fat.
I was Will Smithing bitches before Will Smith ever Will Smith the bitch in his life. That shit was banana boats, man. And look, good on Chris Rock. What a jaw. Chris Rock takes it to the face and then just bounces back, giggles it off. He was a little bit rattled, but went right back to doing what he was doing. That's a pro right there. That's a pro's pro. On top of that, he could have just sat there and laced into both Will Smith and Jada. And yet he just was like, nah, I'm going to do my job. We're going to keep this all PC. He was a consummate professional. Whereas Will Smith, honestly, you're a psychologist, almost bipolar with the way he's reacting out there. And honestly, if you ask me, I think a lot of it has to do with Jada. Like, I think their marriage is just a complete clusterfuck. And she revved him up to go up there and do that because a few seconds earlier, he was laughing about the joke. Thought it was funny. And then she basically gives him a little kick underneath the chair there and sends him on his merry way to go and try to create and wreak devastation on Chris Rock's face. But Chris Rock's a G, takes it like one. And next thing you know, keep my wife's name out your mouth. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. And then he's crying up there like a blubbering idiot. Absolutely bananas. And you're right. Chris Rock's about to get paid. Yeah. I can't wait to go to one of these comedy shows with Chris Rock, or at least to hear the fallout that happens, because you know he is going to dedicate an entire segment to lacing into those two, and they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a real live moment where you're like, what the heck is going on? Is this real? Is it fake? How is this happening on live television? And then the fallout, which is crazy on my end, because it makes you start to wonder, are you old? Because you're starting to see people defend Will Smith. I'm like, that's not defensible. This world has right and wrong. And it's like Will Smith has to defend his wife from jokes. I mean, Come on, think about that part. Okay, yes, if someone attacks her, if someone calls her out her name, if someone makes, maybe insinuating he wants to get with her, okay, fine. But he makes a joke about her appearance at the Oscars. I mean, it's a worldwide audience, time and place. I mean, you could have beat his ass in public, anywhere. But you have to realize it's going to affect you in some way negatively. But for people to defend him is crazy. It's like, what is going on in this world where people don't understand that there's a difference between time and place, proper behavior, and proper reaction? Yeah, you can get mad. Yeah, you can be offended. But you can get on a microphone when you win an award and say, Chris, I was offended. I thought we were boys. And that's that. You don't go and another thing that has been interesting is that I think I would have respected Will more if he punched him.
Yeah.
You don't slap another man. Like, who slaps another man in this day and age? Like, you throw a punch. Like, you bam, or like a gut punch, tackle him, do something manly. You slap another man? That's very weird. what percentage?
Like you slap another man and like he's not even fazed by the slap.
Right. Right. What percentage chance you think it's fake? That in 2 years they'll do a podcast together and all of a sudden they'll be like, okay, we talked about it and this is the way it went down.
Oh no, I think it was all very real. I think at this point, Will Smith's a little bit unstable. And I think a lot of it has to do with his marriage. I think from the inside out, and again, I don't know anything. This is all speculation. I think from the inside out, his marriage is a complete and utter mess. You know, you've seen the way, like, he seemed really surprised when Jada was like, oh yeah, we have an open relationship. And he was like, wait, what? We do?
We do, right? What?
What?
That's crazy.
I mean, it's absolutely bonkers. And I think, honestly, him going up there and doing that kind of goes back to a little bit of that with their marriage, because it almost like trying to, for lack of a better term, win her back, you know what I'm saying? Trying to stand up for her, to show her that he's man enough for her, which, you know, like I said, you're the psychologist. You understand how these things kind of work mentally, with the way you perceive something and then the reactions that you have. So I don't know, man. I feel like that relationship, I'm just waiting for the True Hollywood story on it.
Yes, it's crazy, man. Crazy stuff. But in the world of sports, man, it's been good here in Detroit. A lot of good news dropped on Monday. It was really cool in regards to Detroit, the Detroit Lions, and it maybe took us away a moment away from the nonsense that ends up being the Detroit Lions football team. The Detroit Lions are going to be featured on Hard Knocks, and I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be an opportunity for a behind-the-scenes look at what goes on with the Lions. Most people believe it's going to be the Dan Campbell show, and why not? Because I think that when you see the inner workings of that organization, you want to highlight some things. But I do want to preface this because I think a lot of people get excited when they hear about HBO's Hard Knocks. If you read all the stories, you got to read the fine print. The Detroit Lions have full editorial control over what's going to get aired. So what happens is HBO films 1,700 hours of footage during training camp, and every week they're going to send the Lions an hour of it. And they're going to say, this is what we suggest gets aired. The Lions aren't going to go through it all and put the show together, but the Lions will have full editorial control where if there's something on there that they don't like, it's coming out. And Rod Wood said it in one of his interviews. It's a good marketing tool. And that's how they're using it. And it's going to be entertaining, but don't think that you're going to see a deep dive on the Lions, Sheila Ford Hemp issue, things like that. You're not going to probably see a full detailed look at the fans booing Sheila. Look at that. It's going to be the players, the coaches, Dan Campbell, and featuring some of the players. And that's what it is, and if you watch Hard Knocks, it's going to be great. I think it's a good thing for the Lions. I don't see too many cons other than the fact that maybe, if I want to get on there, I got to have like a Scotty Steiner beard looking, two-tone beard, or I got to show up with the Fu Manchu. Once I saw that the Lions have full control, I told the missus, that pretty much rules me out. There's no way they're going to put a podcaster on there, in any way, shape, or form, other than if I trip in front of everybody and they'll just point and laugh.
Yeah, I think something that you said was pretty accurate. This will be the Dan Campbell show. If you look at everybody on this team, is there another Lions player or is there another Lions front office personnel person that you've got to see, that is must-see TV? Dan Campbell is probably the most outgoing, most outspoken, most entertaining person on the Detroit Lions. So I do feel like this is going to be the Dan Campbell show. This is going to surround Dan Campbell because Jared Goff is essentially like watching paint dry. I don't know if you've heard any of his press conferences or if you've heard any of his sit-down interviews. I know you have. I'm talking to the fans, though, or the people who are listening. It is legitimately like milk toast. There's not a whole lot there. He doesn't ever say anything. He is about as PC can be. There's not really a player on this team currently. That being said, they could draft somebody who's going to be very interesting. But currently on this roster, I don't think there's a guy who you really gravitate towards or who has this big outspoken personality. I mean, if you really look at the way this team is constructed, it's a lot of young players. It's a lot of veterans who are here on one-year contracts who are trying to basically make that big contract next season. So nobody wants to come out and look like an absolute maniac in one of these segments or one of these things. So I do think this will be the Dan Campbell show, and I do think that the only way you get put on HBO is if somehow you show up to training camp in a t-shirt and rip it off, and you paint you paint your beard or you paint your hair 1/2 silver, 1/2 Honolulu blue. My big concern is I don't know if this is good for the team. I get it's good for the organization as a marketing tool, but I don't know if it's good for the team. This is a head coach who's headed into his second year. This is a team that is looking to take steps forward from what was a pretty good second half of the year last year. They lost a bunch of heartbreaking games last season, and they're really looking to build on what they've kind of started. And by that, I mean the culture that they've started. I mean, these guys never gave up as the season went on. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's like the one good thing we can point to that came out of last season. I don't know if bringing television cameras in to kind of show all of this, and you're right, the Detroit Lions have final editorial say on what gets aired, but I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing to have these cameras and to be underneath that type of spotlight when you're really trying to build upon that culture that you tried to establish in your first season. If this was season number 3, season number 4, I think we're talking about something a little bit different, but this is the second season. This is the season that it can kind of go one of two ways, right? Like, this is kind of the make or break, because it could be, you know, it could start off really, really rough, and the guys could totally turn on this coaching staff and on this front office if they get off to a really rough start. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen, you know. It could be, okay, it's a lot of same from last year, and yeah, we gave them everything we had last year, but where to get us now, you know? It could be some of that, and that has me concerned.
Well, I will say this. Based on the comments that Brad Holmes and Rod Wood and Dan Campbell have been making, I do have a hypothesis regarding how things are going in regards to the rebuild. And you look at it and it makes sense because Sheila echoed it and laid the groundwork of what was being told to her. But in regards to the player personality, I think Jared Goff might want to kind of showcase a little bit of his personality, maybe a little bit of the Kristen Harper show. I think Jamal Williams will be also the player star because he's got a good personality.
Yeah, he does. He's like one of the only guys who's got that big personality.
He's going to ham it up, and I think there's going to be an underlying story there too, maybe with a Jeff Okudah or somebody that you don't think is going to break out but potentially will make the show entertaining. It's 5 weeks in August. I think it'll be fun. I don't think I'm going to end up being on it because you don't really see reporters. You hear questions. They do feature snippets of press conferences, but a lot of it's like storytelling about the players, and a lot of it's the behind-the-scenes look at who's going to try to make the roster. So I'm interested to see some of the stories that will emerge. And like I said online on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, I just want to see the moments when players get cut. How does Brad Holmes tell it? Does he say, look, you didn't fit. This is what we like? Or Dan Campbell, what does he say when he takes a player in and tells him, look, it's not going to work out, but we're going to put you back on the practice squad? You know, it's probably going to be the first one you can think of. It's going to be Tom Kennedy. Look, Tom, you know, you've been here. It's going to be Tom Kennedy, the guy that's been up and down on the practice squad like 40 times. Tom, look, man, you're working hard. Everything's great, but it's not going to work. And then they're going to be like, are we going to have Tom? And then the fans are going to be like, are we really going to lose Tom Kennedy? And then they call him. Right. And then
are we going to claim him off waivers?
Right. And then 3 days later, they call him back. Tom's back in the fold, baby. And it's like, yeah, no shit.
Well, that's what they do. They'll find some 7th round draft pick and they'll follow his entire story. Or it'll be some guy who was brought in off his couch and they build him up to be this great player. But the guy never sees the field.
Right.
It's like, what? But you get so invested all the way up until final cut. Right. And on a final cut day, they had to let him go. And he went to the practice squad.
And here's the funny shit. I fall for it every year.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Oh, man, this is great. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. This guy's gone. Or the guy that was just like, was so heavily invested and then he went to another team. He's like, the next day he's like, oh, I went to the Cowboys because, my special teams coach was there. And you're like, you just spent 3 weeks pumping this guy up. And then the second, the Rams one was good, with, Sean McVay. It was funny, in terms of some of the people there. And then, especially because you see their family like, come on, you can do this. You gotta make it. You got a chance. And then you see the guy that's like, that he sucks, but he's never going to make the team. But they keep showing him trying and things like that. So we'll see how that goes with Hard Knocks. It's good. It's good for the city. Look, I like what Rod Wood said. You'd rather not be eligible, but Dan Campbell made it so that they came and they made the call. Now we're going to talk about the draft here, the draft coming to Detroit in 2024 in just a second. But I do want to recap the owners' meetings just a little bit, and based on what Sheila said in her brief interview with a team reporter there, they have sold her on this being a multi-year long-term rebuild. And she came out and said, we're looking for a certain type of player, a culture fit. So Brad Holmes again was asked, and a great job by the reporters who went down to Florida, got on the plane and had a good time down there at the owners' meetings. They asked him and said, what's up with the plan of running it back with a lot of your own free agents on a team that won 3 games? And he said, look, we're about development, and it's not a bad thing to say that, hey, we want to bring back players that, when you look at their stats, had their best years, like a Tracy Walker, Charles Harris, and things like that. And then he said, it's not sometimes always worth it. The grass is not always greener to go out and spend big dollars on free agents. So here's what's going to happen. Guys, you have to taper expectations. The Lions didn't come out and say, well, we're going to not make the playoffs, but they basically said year 2 you want to see growth. Growth from 3 wins is about 6 wins, 7 wins. So that is realistically, this team did not get drastically better. They did not in any way, shape, or form in free agency. And then you can't expect 9 draft. You guys got to remember too, right now, the roster has damn near 79, 80 players on it already. You're only allowed 82, and you're going to get 9 more draft picks. So they're going to end up cutting 7 people even before the draft. You know, because right now, as we sit in this recording, the Lions are one of the heavily rostered teams in the entire National Football League. They're stocking up. But what's happening is they're looking at this like a long-term rebuild. Now, is part of it like, are they desperate to win? Not right now. No, they're not. And I think when Dan Campbell signs a 6-year deal and Brad Holmes signs a 5-year deal, it tells me, and the way this rebuild is going, do you get any sense that there's urgency, like desperation, like you and I are frenetic, like sign this guy, do this guy, do this? Are you going after Deshaun Watson? Nah, we're not serious. Are you after Arden Key? No, he's going to the Jaguars for $7 million. Are you getting this guy? No, we're going to get Jared Davis. And you know why we're getting Jared Davis? Because when he texted me, he said, good job, GM. I saw you banging the table. I want to come back. And it's $1 million. They're doing it cheaply with affordable, controllable, nice people that will fit the culture. And then in a year or 2, and probably year 3 going into year 4, is when you might see 1 or 2 deep free agents. But they're taking their sweet ass time, and there's no pressure. We could scream from now until eternity in year 2. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes have no pressure. They have infiltrated Sheila, and there's an interesting nugget about her I'll share later too. They have infiltrated the Lions principal owner, and they got her talking the same thing. We're trying to build this the right way. Well, good luck, because your fan base is desperate, and they're not happy. They're not happy to hear that you're taking the long-term approach. Now, many people understand it, but bottom line, this is a desperate and starving fan base. Selling them on a long-term rebuild is really tough, especially when you're doing it with Jared Goff and there's better quarterbacks that were available. So that's what they're doing. Bro, I'm not misreading it, right? This is going to take a long-ass time.
This is the thing. I personally don't have a problem with what they're doing. And this is why. I think what you're seeing with the way that they went out and they spent their money in free agency and the way that they have constructed this team is really similar to last year's team. This is really similar to what you got. And look at where they're drafting right now, right? This team is drafting near the top of the draft, okay? They are setting up and trying to position themselves from a roster standpoint. 1, to be flexible. That's why a lot of guys are here on 1-year deals. 2, this team really isn't that good. Like, you've seen what they had last year. And even if these guys had their career years last year, do you expect them to have their career years again the following year? A smart man says, no, you don't. But if you can get 80% of that, okay, fine. That doesn't necessarily generate into additional wins. I don't think this team plans to be very good next year. I think this team expects to be a little bit better than they were last year. And by a little bit better, I mean maybe 4, maybe 5 wins. And that was kind of where we had the basement situated last year. They found a whole new basement, only winning 3 games. So I think the way this is setting up is this team is doing a good job of putting themselves in a position to, and I'm going to use finger quotes here, to tank, but it's not really, it's not outwardly tanking. They are just loading the roster up with a lot of the same guys from last year, a lot of guys who aren't that high-end talent, and this team is doing things with the cap and with salaries to allow themselves to be flexible for year 3. By the time year 3 rolls around, you should have this defense in a spot where you need to add a couple of pieces. This offense should be in a spot where you need to add that quarterback. My expectation for this team and for this rebuild is they will be contending for a playoff spot by year 4 and be in the playoffs by year 4, year 5 at the latest.
Ooh,
so
no,
this is one of those things where we've never seen this as Detroit Lions fans. It's always been putting Band-Aids on bullet holes. And basically the body was shot up with a Tommy gun, and then they reloaded and they shot it up again. And then they reloaded and they shot it up again. You can only put Band-Aids on so many holes. This is a complete and utter gut job, right? It is like going down into the inner city and buying a house for $1,000.
Yeah, right.
The worst blocks ever.
Right.
You know, going in, it's a complete gut job. You might have a frame. You might have a structure. Chances are you're going to have to reinforce that structure before you can even add walls to it. And that's where this team is right now. They have reinforced some of those beams and some of those studs that they have. Now they're looking to add a couple of walls. This is by no means a finished product.
Right, but they got to be really close to the playoffs year 3 because you got big decisions in year 2 that you got to make.
Do. No, absolutely.
I think the roster will get better. I do see it. They will spend. They do. They're just getting rid of the crap off the books, and they're building it in a way that some teams have. But is this special? No. Is this unique? No. Other teams have done it this way. But the bottom line, and like we've always said, and my go-to is, who's the quarterback? And right now, I have no hope and no faith in Jared Goff. I think that you could take and get out there and work with all the players and things like that. It's just, look at the arms race in the AFC. Look at what's going on. You have to overcome Aaron Rodgers, who is still better than Jared Goff. Now, Goff has had success against Aaron Rodgers, and maybe if the Lions were ever to have a miracle and have a home playoff game, maybe you could compete against Aaron Rodgers, who lost one of his big weapons. But at this point in time, I want to see who's going to be under center year 3 and year 4 in this rebuild. And I will, let's talk about Jared Goff before we finish up with the draft and the good news that was announced for Detroit. Brad Holmes was asked, and again, a lot of great things. Look at SIO Lions for a recap of what Brad Holmes and the Lions have said at the owners' meetings. He was asked, what are your thoughts on Goff? Why didn't you get into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes? And again, the idea and the sentiment that's floated around has been, we have a quarterback, which is a terrible line. I would have said 1,000 other things besides we have a quarterback. You could say, we have somebody that we trust. We think that year 2, Jared, can do a lot more things for us, and he's got to prove himself. You're using all the prove yourself lines for everybody else, but Jared Goff, we have a quarterback. Well, I know you're paying the guy north of $20 million. You want to massage him publicly. That's fine. You want to stroke his nuts in public. That's fine. Everybody knows if he sucks this year, he's out. It's simple. It only costs $10 million to get rid of him. No problem. But you're not going to get rid of him before 2023 because of what it would cost to get rid of him. But again, many people are looking at it and they're getting a little bit, cross-eyed. They're looking at it sideways going, wait a minute. Brad Holmes was part of the reason why Jared Goff was drafted number 1 by the Rams. He is going to try to do everything, which he said, we're going to try to do everything. Get him a wide receiver, get him an offensive line, get him a running back, get him 2-3 running backs that can help him. We're going to let him do the screen thing. We're going to build up an offensive line. We're going to give him every opportunity to shine. We got 2 deep threats. We're going to probably add 1 or 2 more wideouts to the mix here to make it better. So while everybody like you and I are just like sitting here going, please get rid of this guy, Brad Holmes, I truly believe, does not view Jared Goff as the throw-in in the Matthew Stafford trade. He wants to develop a quarterback that's been to a Super Bowl, that has pocket presence, that's so corporate, that this is the guy that he believes could take the team into the playoffs and make a run. Now, I don't think that he can elevate his game. And that's why I assigned a question to Vito, or I assigned a question to one of the scouts at SI Alliance. I said, I want to know what your thought. What's your thought? Has Jared Goff peaked? Can he get better? Now, can he limit the turnovers? Can he play better? Yes. I just think, though, how much better can he get to compete with the AFC in terms of the big picture? The AFC, bro, is stacked, and they're getting better, and there's a new crop of quarterbacks coming up every year. And you saw what happened now. The Bears turning over their quarterback. You saw the Panthers. They're looking to get rid of Sam Darnold. These teams are like, you had Jim Irsay drop a nuclear bomb on Carson Wentz. It was like, dude, we made a huge epic error of all time, and we had to get rid of that. I've never seen somebody who can't be a leader. We had to get rid of him. And you got the Lions going, well, we got this quarterback who can't really consistently throw things. He's a nice guy. We like the guy. Do you fear that Goff may be on his way to securing a long-term contract with the Lions? I think it's there. I think they're working on it because, Goff is going to be in a nice position where you know how it always goes, where he plays just good enough to keep 51.5% of the fans happy and just enough to keep the organization, where it'll be like 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, but, a key player gets hurt late in the season and you could say, well, if
DJ Shark was out there, it'd have been different.
It would have been different. Okay, let's sign him to 4 years, $120 million. You're like, fuck! This is like Matthew Stafford all over again. I can't have another ranting session where we're like, just move on. Move on. It works perfectly for you to control. Every team that's done a rebuild has a quarterback that's affordable on a cheap deal, not somebody that, and who knows, maybe Jared Goff might even start to command more than $30 million. Maybe he'll say to himself, good, I leveraged myself to get to a better position. You never know. But I just fear that the Lions love Jared Goff to the point where he may be considered the long-term answer at this point in their rebuild.
Well, I think if you are a Lions fan and you don't like Jared Goff, you should be nervous. And a lot of that has to do with Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes was the guy who was integral in drafting Jared Goff. Brad Holmes seen something in Jared Goff when he was in college, enough to help the Rams move up to grab him. He is a guy who then traded away a franchise quarterback in Matt Stafford to the Rams. And yeah, you got some additional draft capital with that, but there was a reason he was comfortable making that trade, because he knows this player. He knows what Jared Goff can do. He's seen Jared Goff help the Rams get to a Super Bowl. Now, he didn't perform very well in that Super Bowl, but he's seen them get there. And you mean to tell me Detroit Lions fans wouldn't slap themselves in the head if the Lions just got to a Super Bowl and didn't score a touchdown? They'd be ecstatic with that. But he's seen Jared Goff. He's watched Jared Goff mature. He kind of knew some of the turmoil and knew what the situation was with Sean McVay and Jared Goff. And he himself believes in Jared Goff. And to me, that is something to be terrified of. That is something to be extremely scared of. I don't think Jared Goff has done enough in his NFL career where he warrants being the Detroit Lions franchise quarterback. I think he warrants being a stopgap quarterback. He warrants being a backup quarterback. He warrants being a quarterback for this year, being a starting quarterback for this year. I think he is a starter on a bad team. And the Lions are a bad team, so that is why he's here. We talked about it last year. There were backups in the league that I thought were better than him. I thought Case Keenum, the backup for the Browns, was a better quarterback than Jared Goff was last year. I thought at certain points Jared Goff was quarterback 34, 35, 36. As the season unfolded, he kept falling down the list. Now, he is a guy that if you put him in the right spots and you take a lot off his plate, he can function and he can produce, and he's not going to kill your team. I don't think he's a guy that you're going to necessarily win with, though. He's a guy that can help you from losing, or he's a guy that He's a guy that can manage the game and help prevent you from losing it. But he's not a guy who can go out there and win you the game, if that makes any sense. And guys like that don't warrant being franchise quarterbacks to me. And if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you should be terrified that this might become the long-term answer at quarterback for this team. Because Brad Holmes has come out, and look, I don't expect Brad Holmes to bury Jared Goff. Again, this is the guy who he just traded for last year. This is the guy who he went out and brought in and is trying to basically massage to get the most out of him, because I do believe Jared Goff's a little bit fragile mentally. But deep down, Brad Holmes cannot basically attach his future nor this franchise's future to Jared Goff. If he does that, we're ruined. It's all done. It's all downhill. Jared Goff is not your franchise quarterback. It just can't happen that way. This team has to position itself in such a way that next year, whoever that number one quarterback is that's coming out, you've got to position yourself in such a way to be able to go out and get them. Whether it includes moving up, whether it includes just being bad enough to where you're drafting at the top, or it's a situation like you have this year where you're the number 2 team. Now, there's no good quarterbacks in this draft. That's what I'm going to say. There'll probably be one that'll bubble up, because there's always one that bubbles up. But right now, as we head into the draft, there's not one quarterback that I am comfortable giving a first-round draft pick to. And in this specific year, and it only happens to the Lions like this, where the number 1 team, the team who's in front of you, who could draft that superstar quarterback if they were there, doesn't need him. They already have a quarterback. I don't know if this will ever happen ever again, but if it does, the Lions have to somehow figure out a way to manipulate it to where they are the team that is on the clock that needs the quarterback first and can go get that quarterback. But there's a legit fear that Jared Goff might be the long-term solution here in Detroit. I don't think he's a solution. I think he would be a problem. And you should be afraid. You really should be afraid.
Yeah, I'm afraid. And it's just interesting because you have a quarterback maybe in Malik Willis that if you want to do the long-term rebuild, then you say, okay, we'll draft Willis and then we can keep Goff for another couple years. That's the play.
How would you feel if they drafted Willis? Would you be on board with that?
I'd understand it, because then you could get Goff a couple more years, and then you could say, of course, part of me thinks nefariously, and I think, well, okay, this is great. These two understand how to massage the owner, and this is how you get 4 years. This is how you would get 4 years from the Detroit Lions, is to say we need a quarterback. It's going to take time, and we need Goff in here to kind of right the ship. And this is a perfect reason why Jared Goff is here, and he can take Malik Willis under their wing. But in my mind, I think that in the manner in which the Lions get down, they're not taking Malik Willis. They'll wait till 32 and maybe a Corral or a Desmond Ridder, and they'll just do that, and they won't go because Malik Willis' tape is not that good, man.
I will lose my mind if they take a quarterback in the first round. I'll lose my mind if they take a quarterback in the second round. This is a year where you load up, you stock up on nuts and bolts. You stock up on guys who are going to make contributions over the course of this season, next season, and seasons after this. This is not a year where you go and you take a flyer on a quarterback who you think might become something. All of these quarterbacks in this draft, they all have huge question marks. That's the problem. That is like the most unfortunate thing. It is like, honestly, this is a draft class full of Jared Goffs. That is what it is.
Right.
You have a mobile Jared Goff. You have a Jared Goff who can throw the ball down the field. You have a Jared Goff who makes Jared Goff questionable decisions. It is a litany of Jared Goffs that you could be drafting. Just some have better legs, some have better arms. One has the exact same hand size, very tiny hands. So it is all Jared Goffs. Do you want another Jared Goff? You don't need another Jared Goff. You already have one. One is enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy, we'll see what happens, and stay tuned, because there still is not a consensus at number 2. It could be any one of 6 different people, and the Lions could trade down. Yes, it's going to be crazy. Draft night is going to be wild, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But let's finish on a positive note. The city of Detroit is going to host an NFL draft in 2024. we knew about it. Everybody kind of had a feeling because you looked at it by law of averages. It was Detroit, Green Bay, and Washington. And there's no way you're going to have a party in Green Bay. It just doesn't make any sense. And then Washington, maybe. It just had a feeling with when you read that Sheila's on all these committees and you realize they're trying to get events in Detroit. The Lions in Detroit were going to be featured because of the way in which the league views Sheila Ford Hemp. The new Sheila Hemp. It has, if you guys have noticed, on the Lions website and in recent team-related stuff where reporters have mentioned her name, it's now Sheila Hemp. Even she doesn't want Ford in her name, and she took it out. I couldn't believe it. It's a rebrand from Sheila. Good for you, Sheila. You know you don't want to be booed. Take the Ford off of your name. You want to be affiliated. I bet her husband was like, look, babe, you got booed, and you're a Hemp now. You're not Sheila Ford Hemp. You're Sheila Hemp. And it makes it easier to write. Hell, if that's what you're going to do to rebrand, too often I'm not into that kind of stuff, like stick to who you are and things like that. Try to prove yourself wrong. But it's actually much better to write Sheila Hemp than it is to write Sheila Ford Hemp. And so she even recognized, let me take those 4 letters off of my name and let me keep it moving. Let me get to these committees and let me get some stuff done here and let me get some money into the city of Detroit. And that's what she did. And good for her. Bring a party to Detroit because you're not going to really count on playoff success and too many games at Ford Field. Get something fun for the fans and the draft and Hard Knocks, something great for the city. It's going to be fun. The atmosphere for the week, the NFL world coming down. Detroit knows how to party. I know you sat there when you were thinking of what we're going to talk about. You were thinking, man, is there a way Detroit could fuck this up? Not the people. No. Now, I know maybe, the one thing, we'll preface it when we're at episode 600 in 2 years. Detroit, please, no violence in the streets. Save it for after the draft. No fighting, no nothing, no drunken videos, no pranks. Get us through this week, and then you can get back to the Greektown bar fights that you want to do on TikTok and all those social viral videos that are out there, people getting their ass beat at Greektown. Do that later. All we can hope for is the weather stays well, the city showcases itself in a positive way, and there's an opportunity for the city to shine. There is a small risk, weather could fuck up the program, but there's got to be contingency plans. You'll know the weather a week in advance, and by and large, if it ain't gonna be outdoors, it'll be a good time indoors. So I think it's all positive. It's gonna be great. The NFL world will descend on Detroit. Not just one day. The first day is great, but the 2 and 3 days later will be an all-day party, and it'll be a good time for everybody involved. And it'll be fun, too, because we'll debate it, whether I should just send somebody else there, and me, you, and Kenny can just go have a good time, put on some costumes, and get ourselves over nationally and things like that. So it'll be a good time. We'll see how it all plays out. But I see a lot of good things happening from the NFL draft, baby, coming to the D.
Yeah, man, I was shocked and pretty stunned. I mean, when you look at it, like Green Bay was kind of in the mix, and there's no way anything's going to happen in downtown Green Bay. Downtown Green Bay is like the smallest city up north that you've ever been to. So I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was. But whenever anything good happens to Detroit, I'm always a little bit shocked. And them getting awarded the NFL draft scared me. I'll be honest with you. It scared me because I don't want Detroit to embarrass itself. I think Detroit will do a good job. I mean, when the Super Bowl was here, it was fantastic. March Madness has been here. It's been fantastic. There have been large events that have taken place here. The Winter Classic took place in Ann Arbor, and that was fantastic. There have been large events that have gone on in the city of Detroit or in the neighboring cities around Detroit, and they have all gone off without a hitch, and they've been great. I think the NFL draft coming to the city of Detroit is going to be awesome. I'm excited for it. I know me, you, Kenny, will be at this. There'll be millions of people at this. A ton of our friends, a ton of our family will be there. I still do hold a little sliver of fear that the city might somehow embarrass itself with dumbness that takes place.
Yeah, antics.
Yeah,
antics.
And that's what it is. It's just people being dumb and not basically controlling themselves and not putting themselves in good positions. Just dumb stuff happening. I mean, here's a prime example. I was driving home from the gas station the other day.
Oh God. It's story time with Adam.
I'm driving home from the gas station the other day, and I pull out, and I'm waiting at the light, and there is a looked like it was like a 92 Astro van. Had bald tires, and it was basically just roasting them in the gas station parking lot, and it basically sped up. The dude jumped out of the car. There was another guy walking into the gas station, and they got into it right there in the middle of the gas station parking lot. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? It was like over nothing. It was over nothing. It was just dumb. And I'm just like, man, I'm so glad I'm driving away from this right now, because you don't know what the hell is going to happen. Everybody has guns now. Somebody could have got shot. Who the hell knows? It's just always something silly. And I just hope nothing silly happens when Detroit hosts the draft.
You know, the thing you could think about now is someone gets high and tries to get on the stage with one of the players.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
it might be you.
I'm number one. Trash on Macaroon. Oh God. Oh God. Oh, let's worry about that in 2 years. I think the way they do it, there'll be nice security. They'll have it done right. They'll have the stage far away from the people. The thing that will happen is somebody says something crazy on the cameras when they're interviewed and things like that. But let's just hope the Lions have picked like 17 and they're moving along in their rebuilding process. I can't wait, cause it's going to be a good time. I think the opportunity for the city to shine again is good, and to have this, and again, Rod Wood said it. If the fans show out, if the attendance is huge, if the visual's there, if the commissioner likes it, then the opportunity maybe for the Lions to get back in the Super Bowl mix will be there as well, because Rod Wood acknowledged, he's like, we're not in the mix right now because the nice weather cities just dominate at this point in time. So if Detroit shows out, then there'll be other NFL events that will take place. But if it goes down like Will Smith and there are people slapping each other all up over the place and it's a violent atmosphere and it's not good, then there'll be an opportunity for the league to say, we're never coming back here ever again. So let's see what happens over the course of the next 2 years. It'll be a fun 3-day weekend. It'll be a festive time. I know for sure it'll be a fun end of the month in April situation where we can all gather and celebrate football and root for guys that we never heard of in the 6th and 7th round. It'll be a good time. It's good. It's good. It's some good news for a change at this point in time, 2 years out. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at Adam R. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at Adam RSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Podcasting time is coming to a close. Anywhere you download your favorite podcast, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast and our content will find you. Daily content dedicated to the Pistons, Wings, Lions, Tigers, college sports, and professional wrestling. Doing it all since 2013. Adam and John, Doc and Jock. Having a good time. Thanks to you guys. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the laughs. We appreciate all the fun banter at Detroit Podcast. Thanks, cuz. Let's run it back next week.